Well, this is Keith in Pflugerville, Texas. Gonna go for a walk this morning. It's almost 60 degrees. Gonna try out this old EWA microphone with my iPhone 12 and see how it works. So we'll let you know. Take care. Okay, here we go. Out for a walk this morning, January 29th, 2022, Pflugerville, Texas. It's 60 some degrees right now, so this is winter in central Texas. Of course, who knows, we may get hit by a snowstorm on late February. There's a neighborhood as I head out the door. We'll give you a view of our hike and bike trail in a few minutes. Well, we're coming up to our neighborhood main intersection here. I won't give you the street name because who knows? Somebody might want to come and visit me. You never know. But it's a nice neighborhood. Pflugerville, Texas. A little city with about, I think the population is about 50,000. Nice town with a terrific hike and bike trail. You've seen some of my previous videos probably of that. But let me give you some more in a little bit. We got a wonderful hawk flying around this morning. I don't know if you can see him very well, but down below the tree line right now. Maybe he'll come back in a few seconds. In the meantime, we'll take a look at this bush with the red berries. I don't know what it's called, but here in central Texas, you see them, I think in the springtime and the wintertime. Of course, in the wintertime, there's no leaves on it. But that's some pretty berries. Well, there's that hawk flying around, one of them back there in the background. We're coming up on a dead, it's wintertime, so you have this dead, well not dead, but dormant mulberry tree here. And what's funny is, the hills of Missouri, as kids, we used to love to go pick the mulberries off the mulberry trees and eat the berries. Of course, you had to be careful because it had insects on it, so if you didn't wash it, who knows what you were going to get. But the funny part here is our Indian neighbors love mulberries too, so they'll come down to the tree and sometimes pick off the berries, clean them up and eat them. It's a good tasting berry. So we're going to go down to the trail here. Some people go fishing under the bridge here, but I know where the water comes from. I'm not sure I'd eat those fish or not, but it looks pretty. Right around again. Let's see if we can get a picture of him. It's just the right day. Wind blowing a little bit. Nice weather. Now we're down on the hike and bike trail and just gonna follow it along for a bit. You can actually go up to 20 some miles on the different segments of the trail. There's another hawk flying up here. Yeah, beautiful birds. And as you can see, when it floods, the water gets up high enough to float the debris, limbs and leaves, up to where you can see how high the water was, but rarely gets deep enough to flood the whole field. Occasionally it does. And here's another little fishing spot that some people like to try out. There's a few little perch and bass and a lot of minnows. I don't know if you can see them, but somebody lost fishing line out there. Sometimes an occasional turtle. I don't see any right now. Yeah, we'll get back on the trail and take you toward the goats. We have a urban farm down here that they have a herd of goats that they put in a place where the kids can actually feed the goats and pet them if they want to, let them nibble at your fingers, things like that. So we'll show you that a little later. Pretty sure you'd call these limestone rocks, but the creek meanders around these rock outcroppings, and a little farther down I actually found a I guess it was an impression of a fossil. I think it's called a nautiloid from several million years ago, but that was kind of interesting. Anyway, a nice scenic little creek bed area here. Everybody's real friendly on this trail. We all kind of say hi to each other and most of the time, but I don't want to film people without their permission, so I'll try to not get too many people in the video. Just give you an idea what it looks like. It's a great place to live. It's about a block and a half from the house to get to this point, and like I say, you can go many miles on it throughout the day, or if you prefer to ride a bike, it's good for that too. Well, here's an interesting discovery. I don't know if you can see it at the top of that tree, but there's a real bushy thing that looks like a giant nest. Well, as an old Missouri hillbilly, my first assumption would be that that's a squirrel's nest. But apparently not, because some kind of bird with a white head stuck its head up a few seconds ago. It hasn't come back out. Maybe I scared him to hide back down, but some kind of big bird nest. And they do have kind of birds that kind of look like storks around here. I don't know if that's whose nest it is or not, but it's some kind of big bird nest. We have a lot of owls, usually around the park area, especially in the evening. You can hear them in different places. And sometimes they'll come and build their nest. And although it appears we're in a very wooded area, you can see by the apartments across the creek there that we're actually in a very urban area, but the green belt is wide enough and large enough to where, except for the road noise, you would think you're way out in the woods sometimes, but it's in the middle of town. You can see a building in the distance. It's a neighborhood rec center and pool for one of the subdivisions here in the area. So a lot of those, our neighborhood doesn't have one, but the city has a great pool complex, playgrounds within about a mile walk from our house on the hike and bike trail. So the granddaughters love going there when they can and playing with their friends. Now we're coming up on the playground area in this little drainage area here, but another fairly scenic part of the creek, and the creek bottom there, as we would call it from the hills of Missouri. I joke with people that this makes me feel like I'm back home in the hills of Missouri, but of course, like I say, you're in an urban area, so you can see and hear the cars all going by on the streets across the bridge. There's that nice little subdivision playground that the kids like to play on. They just remodeled their tennis court area with some picnic table stuff. So, a taste of our Pflugerville, Texas lifestyle. Well, we're back in another open area now. And I actually saw a fox cross here a month or two ago. Fairly unusual. I have seen at least 2 bobcats while I was out walking or bike riding on a hike and bike trail over the years. And I swear one time I actually saw a wolf, but that would sound pretty far-fetched in an urban area, but sure looked and acted like a wolf. Who knows, maybe it's a stray dog. But there are a lot of critters around. And the coyotes have figured out how to live in Pflugerville in the Greenbelt, and they're pretty prevalent. The funny part is when there's a pack of coyotes and the ambulance goes by with the siren going, they tend to howl along with it. I don't know why. I guess it's the frequency of the siren or something, but anyway. So in the view of another big field, and as you can see, housing subdivisions all along the hike and bike trail Greenbelt. Another reason we love it here. Not sure I want to encourage any more people to move here from across the country. We already got a bunch of you. But hey, y'all welcome. Come on down. Well, we're going around the curve here and another cute spot on the trail. This is where the stream goes underneath a little bridge. Of course, as you can tell, when it floods, the water goes over the bridge. But right now, it's just a babbling brook. So it's kind of a nice spot. I always make friends on the trail. Well, that's my personality, no matter where I'm at. But I just ran into a Filipino and her husband, a couple that I hadn't met before on the trail. And that happens all the time here on the hike and bike trail. You run into people you know or don't know, and you make friends, and you see them again. It's just a fun, friendly environment here. Okay, I'm gonna let the video run a little bit because we're going past this urban farm. Hopefully you can hear the roosters here in a little bit. Hopefully you can hear the chickens cross the stream there. I have a lot of chickens, guineas, goats, I think a few ducks and stuff. There's a little squirrel going down the tree and across the creek. Back home in the hills of Missouri, them would be good eating. Of course, we don't do that here. Well, here's one of the outflow spots for the water treatment plant. Across from it, you can see the little urban farm. I was always taught as a kid in the hills of Missouri, we lived on a big farm in the hills of Missouri with a river running through it. You don't like to see bubbles in the water that, bubbles that hang around. That usually indicates there's detergent or something in the water. So I know they test the water all the time, but again, I'm not sure I'd eat any fish that I caught out of the creek. But it's pretty and hopefully it's safe. Well, here's the herd of goats I was telling you about. They're probably all going to come running toward the fence when they see me because they think I'm going to feed them. But it's a nice spot for the kids to come by and visit the goats. You can see some old ones and young ones, and sometimes they'll butt heads, sometimes they'll play. They'd love for you to feed them. A lot of people will bring vegetables like carrots, cucumbers, stuff like that for them to eat. But yeah, the McBride's farm is, or McMurtry's farm, I think is what it's called. They let the goats hang out here and kids get to play with them. Looks like this one's wanting to talk to me. So what do you want to say? Can you say ba? Oh, okay, I guess you don't like that. Oh, you didn't like him? Okay. Alright, I'll leave you alone then. Anyway, if you're ever here, come visit the goats. It's at the end of the Windermere subdivision. So we'll walk over the little bridge here to get back on the trail. Going through the walk bridge here. That way you got a way to get across even when it floods on the bottom bridge. Nice little playground here for the kids too. It's a small one, but it's nice and quiet. Usually not too many kids playing around. So this is the size of the creek past the water treatment plant. That kind of gives you the idea of the amount of flow of water that gets put back into the creek from the treatment plant. It's a fairly small creek, except of course it hasn't rained for much the last couple months, so when it rains it gets pretty full. There's my unfavorite sycamore tree there. For those of you who don't know sycamore trees, they're a softwood, but in the spring and summertime they have kind of powdery leaves, which can annoy you sometimes. And it's a very brittle wood, so if the wind blows too hard, it's going to break off. They also like to be close to water, so why you would intentionally plant them in Central Texas, I don't have any idea. But anyway, a couple of sycamore trees there for you. I got another little story about these two trees coming up on the hike and bike trail, right next to the hike and bike trail here. At least it's interesting to me. May not be to you, but here in Central Texas, there's a lot of wild pecan trees that grow all over. And the squirrels love pecans. There, you see them all the time, picking up pecans, taking them to hide them for the winter and all that kind of stuff. Well, the nuts fell off of this tree in the fall, these trees in the fall. But the strange thing I noticed was the squirrels wouldn't touch them. And then I got a closer look at the nuts. These are walnut trees. They're not pecan trees. So why don't the squirrels pick up the walnut trees like they do the pecans? My theory is, having been from the hills of Missouri and having a lot of walnut trees on our farm, a walnut has a very, very hard shell. Maybe it's because the squirrels have no way to crack the shell. Whereas a pecan nut, the shell is much easier to crack. So that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. So again, here's a little view of the subdivision and this little park. Got a nice little tennis court there for the neighborhood homeowners. Well, going around the curve here, but as a dog owner and a dog playing in the field, there's a lot of dog owners in this town. Well, actually in Central Texas in general, there's a lot of dog owners, and generally 99% of the owners take good care of their pets. Occasionally you'll run into a few that have aggressive dogs, but for the most part they're friendly folks and friendly dogs. We can get a picture of the hawk up here again. It's flying around all over today. I love those birds. My granddaughter Nani calls them eagles. I don't have the heart to tell her they're not eagles. Well, you can probably hear the construction background noise, which is not uncommon in Central Texas nowadays, but we're kind of coming up on Ave Parkway, which is kind of the west leg of the hike and bike trail, although you could make a right turn up here and go several blocks and hit some other parts of the trail. Even go over to Highland Park area and go down that trail. But up here a little ways is my turnaround point, so we'll proceed to the tree line up there close to the road and make a U-turn, head back the other way, and eventually I'll find some new video to show you. One of the things I like when I'm out walking is just seeing all the wildlife or wild plants. And I'm not sure what these are called. They're not really cattails like we would have called them in the hills of Missouri. But they're a pretty wild plant that usually grows in wet areas and has this bushy top that looks like it has fuzzy seedlings or something to drop off of it. Oh, there's little butterflies flying around. Better find a warm home, butterfly, because it's going to get cold one of these days. So anyway, a sample of those kind of plants. Yes, I know you can still hear the construction noise, but let me give you a sample of this part of the little creek. It's kind of more like a bayou or kind of still water. It's not as running as fast as some of the other parts of the creek, but it's a nice little spot. I suppose some people try to catch a few little fish here. I don't know if you can read it, but there's now a sign that says, "Notice, please do not feed chickens in park." I think the reason is because so many people were feeding the chickens that they kept leaving their home base on the little farm, and kind of got scattered out where it couldn't be controlled. So they really don't want you feeding the chickens. They want to keep them in their home spot. So we're gonna walk around the corner here, head back east on the trail, and here's the sign of the farm, McMurtry Farm. Nice little place, and I think they may still rent facilities out for special occasions. I'm not sure, they used to. Anyway, McMurtry Farms, right here in the middle of Pflugerville, Texas. I don't know if you can see it very well, but here's another strange thing to me that I've noticed while walking the trail is their snails love these plants for some reason. Now, since it's wintertime and probably the recent cold wave maybe killed a bunch of them, you don't see as many, but there's just hundreds or thousands of snails on these little wild plants throughout the year. So I don't know why they like it, but snails love those plants. Well, I was trying to find a fossil imprint that I found one day on this part of the creek. I can't find the big one, but looks like there's a couple of smaller ones here. It's probably covered up with dust and dirt, but a few smaller ones look like. But apparently, researching it, it was like the imprint of a nautiloid fossil, but can't find it again right now. I'm sure it's here somewhere. Who knows what critters lived here millions of years ago. I think I may have found it. This looks like the one. You can see an imprint, and from what I've read, it's not the fossil itself, it's just an imprint of the fossil that was there at one point. Well, I thought I'd stop and show you this part of the creek. You can see a lot of algae growing there, and it brings back memories of me growing up on the farm, and the West Fork of the Black River ran through the farm, so we had access to the river pretty much anytime we wanted to once we reached a certain age. And of course, it wasn't uncommon that we would just drink water from the stream. Of course, at that time, we didn't realize that the cows that crossed the creek upstream would poop in the water some days. And you were drinking water theoretically that they had already reacted to. But none of us ever got sick. But in the fall, I think it was called the dog days of autumn, parents would kind of restrict their children's play in the water because they knew, even at that time, that you could get sick from the algae. So if it was a slow rainy season and a lot of algae growth, you would tend not to want to swim in the water, or if you did, try not to swallow any water. But it kind of reminds me of that. So, you know, there's things that the old folks learned years ago over generations that are probably still valid today. Don't drink the water. Okay, we're just east of the Swenson Boulevard Bridge, close to the neighborhood, but this is a little part of the creek that has a little tiny dam and kind of backs up the water. People come down here and go fishing, and I think there's a few little fish in here. I don't know how many, but nice little spot. And I'll show you a little thing here that's common in Texas. I don't know if it is the rest of the country. I know it is in some other countries, but apparently somebody passed away in this area probably within the last 6 months or so. So family members and friends come and put a little shrine up to the person. So I don't know what the story is, but that's a nice thing to do. Well, here's a tree story. When I grew up in Missouri, I knew about every kind of tree that existed. You can tell by the leaves, the bark, it's just the nature of the trees. But here in Central Texas, there's one tree like this one here that's called a hackberry tree that grows everywhere. I mean, they grow everywhere. And I don't know if the name of it comes from the fact that birds eat the berries and then cough the berries up, or whether they just poop the berries out. But whatever happens, they grab the berries and then eat it and expel the berries through their mouth or their rear end, which lands on the ground and grows another hackberry tree. So they're kind of an ugly tree. They do create shade, but they're not a pretty tree. But hey, a tree's a tree. But they're kind of hard to keep in control. But it's better to have a tree than not have a tree. So that's the hackberry tree story from my point of view. I don't know how accurate it is, but that's what I've heard. Okay, here's another key story. We're coming up on the mystery birdhouses. You notice on the pole coming up, there's a cute little birdhouse there. I think they were donated by someone, maybe Boy Scouts or some volunteer group. But they were put here about a year ago, and I have yet to see a bird make a nest in the house. I don't know why. For one thing, there's no foot rod for the bird to land on, but I don't know if that would prevent them making a nest there or not. So I'm curious to see this next spring, the spring coming up, whether a bird will make a nest in those. We'll see. I guess we'll have to keep you dated on the success of the mystery bird houses. They're pretty. Maybe they don't like the color. I don't know. Here's another big field east of Swenson Boulevard. Well, some of you know already that I'm a big bluegrass music fan. And one of my favorite bluegrass music buddies lives in this neighborhood. He and his late wife, Trish, did a lot of music stuff around town. In fact, Kevin still plays in a band, or several bands, I would imagine. He's also a really good keyboard player, songwriter. So you see him around the hike and bike trail here in Pflugerville every once in a while, and you can catch him playing in various bands around town, around the area. There's a little sign with some information on the natural habitat on the hike and bike trail. Well, we're getting close to the big playground area, which you can see in the far distance there, but also a couple of really nice sand volleyball courts that folks play on a lot of time. So again, a lot of space here for folks to picnic or just play with whatever they want. Here's a picture of the big playground. Nice gazebo, a lot of benches, a little creek flows through here. I'll try not to get anybody's close-up picture in it, but that's what it looks like. Here's a parking area, restroom area, parking area near the big playground. Another little picnic area. It's also a nice veterans memorial up here with some statues, and my granddaughters always like to walk over and shake their hand. The little guy statue has a pretty good form of salute there. Not bad.